Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be looking at how to take better photos in Forza Horizon. Hopefully we can give you guys a bit of help and some suggestions, and we look forward to seeing how your photos turn out. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is go to an existing race that is near the environment we want to shoot in. So today we're going to do a little bit of a forest one. So we're just working our way to the Whitewater Falls near the Slate Quarry. So we're going to make our way there. I'm just using a stock skyline, so I find it's quite good to shoot something simple first. It's a good bit of practice, but by all means use whatever car you want, whatever one you want to show off. So we're going to come up to this event. This is just one way to do it. What we want to do, the reason we're coming to the event is we want to create our own track. The purpose of that being that we can choose the season, we can choose the time of day, we can choose the weather in general, and we can also make it so that time doesn't pass. So we can have the setting we want and kind of freeze it there. It gives us plenty of time to wander around. So we enter the event and go across to create a route. Or route. The reason I'm doing it this way is because for some of the event types, if you leave the predefined track too far, it will warp you back. If you do this way, you can create a point-to-point one real easily, and that gives you freedom to roam wherever you want to get from A to B. And obviously the point of these is not to actually win a race or race at all, it's to, they're shoot routes, I guess. So we're going to create a route there. Okay, so we're just going to drive up the track a wee way, just so we don't finish too close, but because we're going to do a point-to-point race, it's not going to matter whether we stay on track or not, which is a good thing. We want to be able to just sort of free roam around and take our time. So we just push start there and place finish line. We'll keep it nice and close as well, so that because it'll make us do a test drive first, and we don't want to just drive unnecessarily for another 5 minutes. And test route. And start the race. So in the test as well, you can sort of free roam and take some pictures if you want, but the main reason that we're doing the route and actually saving it is so that we can control the weather, the season, and the time of day. And save route. Just going to delete that one. Create new. And just call it forest. And then we want to create our custom event. Okay, so we want to set it to anything goes. We want to be able to bring any of our cars here to shoot in this scenario that we're creating, so we want to keep it open. Okay, and then just go to event settings, season. We're going to go autumn because we're in the forest. We want to get all those nice colors and all the dead leaves on the floor. Weather, we're going to go early afternoon, so the sun's coming straight down through the trees, casting that mottled, speckled sort of pattern on the forest floor. And we'll make it clear, just so that it's nice and strong light coming through. And time progression, we set to fixed, that way the sun doesn't move, so we always have the same lighting condition. Confirm. Call this whatever you want. I'll just call it Whitewater Shoot. Already done a couple of these. Okay, and then we just click on it and pick the car you want to shoot in there. And this just means that now when you go to that race event flag, you'll be able to choose from the race itself or the custom ones that you've created. And when we load up, it should be autumn, it should be early evening, sun nice and high, clear day. There we go. So we've got nice short shadows, sun's nice and high in the sky, plenty of color in the trees, and all we want to do now is find somewhere to shoot. So we could do a Yui. We're just going to go straight. There'll be hopefully somewhere around here that looks nice, and that's just going to depend on you, really. You know, it's down to your eyes what feels nice to you. What we're looking for is a nice sort of spot, good surroundings that we can utilize this light that's coming through the trees. So there's not too much here. We want to find a nice spot. Now, with a bit of luck, because we haven't got checkpoints in this race, it's just a point to point, it's not going to pick us up and teleport us anywhere. Okay, so looking for a flatter area. See if we can find some thicker. Probably want to go over there. We'll just find somewhere close for now. Maybe I'll have a drive around and sort of speed it up a little bit, and we'll get back into it when I find a nice spot. Let's have a look here. We've got the sun a bit behind us. We don't have much. No. So I'm looking for a kind of a darker area in general that has lots of sort of dark behind it. Let's try. We're on a bit of a slope here, but we'll see what we can do. We just want a little bit of find a spot where we've got a bit of texture in the light, make it a bit more interesting. And this is where you should be taking the time, or taking your time. Every little, you want to get your car on the right angle to for the background. Maybe we'll try it backwards one. I'm just going to park in this spot here. Okay, now I'm going to, because I've got my car facing to the left, I'm going to turn the steering wheel to the right and then hit the photo mode button. That way we get a little bit of the rims showing as well. Okay. I'm just going to, for this one, I feel like the horizon line, because it's quite bumpy, we're going to focus on making sure the car looks straight first, and now that just gives us the feeling that maybe it's we're on the hill's quite sloped. All we do is like aim at the car, hit X, and that will force our focus to be on the car. The other one, unless you're doing maybe like a rally car or something like that, if you hit the left trigger, I'm on the PC, but I'm using a Xbox controller. You can reset all your cosmetic damage, which includes dirt and scratches and damage. So you can see here, we've managed to get a spot that has lots of variation in brightness. The car's quite dark, but that's okay. We can get some cool effects with that, especially if you are have any experience editing and have maybe Photoshop or Lightroom, and you can do a lot more to the photos after you've taken them to make them even more sort of realistic. Okay, so we've got a couple of options here. First of all, we want to find sort of what background we like, what angle of the car we like. And if we're not happy with, if we like, say for example, we like the background here but not the position of the car, move the car. Don't you know, that's the cool thing about this, is you can take as much time as you want repositioning and fiddling with things. You know, you might not quite like the reflection you've got there, and if you move the car across to here, it might change everything, and everything all of a sudden it looks really, really great. I'm not going to spend too much time doing that. We just want a quick sort of shot. And what I'm trying to do, I think we might take a portrait shot, so we'll shoot up and down. They're a little bit more difficult, just because you're going to have to turn your head for a bit. So we're going to just roughly place it between these two trees. We might not end up having them in shot. Now another option we have is our zoom. We can either zoom out and physically move in, and what happens is we get this sort of distortion, sort of aggressive stance to the car, or we can run backwards and zoom in to fill the same amount of screen, and that gives us a very different look. It also affects how much of the background we see, how wide and how high we can see. So keep those things in mind. We won't talk about composition too much at the moment. You want to be, you know, just shoot it how you feel. I think we might do the portrait and have the trees outside of shot. So I'm thinking I'm going to do something like this. Now, again, once you've done that, you hit X, make sure the center of the reticle is on the part of the car you want to be in focus, and just hit X and it will automatically set the focus for you. Might just tilt this a bit. Yeah, okay. Now we've jumped into photo mode. I'll reset to the default. Now before I go and tilt everything, I'm going to do everything like this, because when we tilt it, it does this. Whoops, not that. Because when we tilt the camera, we're stuck having to look sideways, and that just makes everything a lot harder. Okay, so we just hit Y, jump into effects. Now we're not moving. These are similar to sort of real world settings, but not quite the same. For shutter speed, the effect it has is our motion blur. We're not moving, so we don't need to worry about that. And if we did have motion blur, it would look strange. It wouldn't make sense. Now, focus we don't need to touch because we've set that with the X button before. Now, aperture is basically our depth of field. It's how quickly the trees in the background go out of focus. Now, this is one of the finicky ones where if you go a little bit too far or a little bit too little, and it takes it away from looking real and makes it much more like it was shot in a game. And I found as well a lot of these little imperfections, like the you know how the light's splotchy and it's not just a flat strip of light. Those sorts of things can actually add and make it look and feel a little bit more real. I'm going to switch the bokeh to hex again. This is just how overexposed light reacts, and sort of how the blur in the background reacts. Sampling we're going to put to quality so we get the best we can out of the shots. We'll come back to contrast and exposure and brightness. We're going to turn the car lights off and turn the driver off. Okay. Now, in this scenario, we've got the cars quite a bit, quite dark. So we've got the choice of what we want to have stand out. We're going to start with your exposure, brighten it up a little bit, and we'll do the same with brightness. Now that haze that's coming up, we can counter with contrast. But what that will do is that's color. That haze we're getting, we can counter with contrast, but we will end up with quite a dark shot. Again, this depends on what you like. For me, these kind of add to it because we are in shadow, we're being realistic. You know, you can always move around again, and just don't forget, if you do move, if you do some changes, make sure you set your focus again. You can move your right joystick up and down, the angle of view, that's fine. It's when you step sideways, forwards and backwards, that's where your focus has been compromised. So I might bump the exposure up on this. I think it's up to you. Again, this is all comes, majority of it comes down to feel. You know, do you like it nice and bright in the background? Do you want it even out? And a shot like this where we've got bright stuff and dark stuff, again, if you have the abilities, we can fix and alter that in post-production. We can edit it after we've taken the shot in game. For those of you that don't have that those programs or that knowledge, that's still fine. I would suggest maybe shooting in areas with more even light, maybe. But we'll do another one next time, of maybe a beach shoot and different ways to go about shooting your car on the beach in terms of light and weather. So our aperture, I normally work between sort of 10 and 20 on this. Less than 10, so we're on 0 at the moment. This is what you would call like an infinity or infinite focus, where everything way off in the distance is still sharp and in focus. Our eyes don't really work like that unless we're looking at something that's far away. So to start with, I'll bump it to 14 and have a look. So now we've got a little bit of blur happening in the background. What we want to watch is, you can see around here, when the game renders the blur, it gives it sort of a texture. I'm not too fussed about that because it can be fixed in post-production, editing-wise afterwards. But if you are bothered by that, it's best just to reduce your aperture there. And you'll notice it's happening because it already exists in this tree texture. So that being the case, we're just going to work with it. Okay, so I'll show you an exaggerated version. Real shallow depth of field. Okay, and what this does is it does a couple of things. It makes your focal point very important. You know, do I want the headlights in focus and the back wheels out of focus, or do I want to focus on the back wheels, or do I want to focus off on that tree in the back there? They all make a big difference. It also has an effect where it gives you the feeling of something being very small, like a miniature. That's because this is what a macro lens does in photography. You end up with a very shallow depth of field, but you're able to zoom in on things that are very small. We don't want to push it this far. You can also see how bad the back ends up rendering. I mean, this is not a new game, but it does a really good job in this photo mode. There are some things it doesn't have the hang of yet. So we're going to reduce that. Some shots, you know, you want to be creative. There's absolutely no reason why you can't push these, like your aperture, as much as you want. It's completely up to you. I just like to keep it around sort of the 25 maybe for this one, just to give it a bit more of an effect there. So we'll be playing back and forth with this lighting, just to figure out what we want. I'm not too worried about the difference because I know there's plenty of things I can do afterwards to bring that back out. And I definitely recommend it if you play a lot and you're really interested in getting some good shots of the cars, of your favorite cars that you have. I definitely do suggest having a look at some editing software. Lightroom's the one I prefer to use on this because it's got a couple of tools that really it does kind of a sharpening thing. There's a thing called texture and a thing called clarity, and those two together, something about how they just make the image pop, brings out a bit more crispness, and also just makes the image look more real. See, for me it does make sense to have this car in a bit of shadow. So we're going to put maybe around 69. But like I said, we're going to brighten this 70. We're going to brighten this up in post. So for me, again, I'm not taking this photo as a finished piece. I'm taking it considering what I'm going to do afterwards. For the next video I upload, we'll do one where we do a bit of both. We do one for taking a shot and ending at that in game, and then a second version where we do one and finish it up and do some extra bits outside of the game. Temperature, I always like to do a little bit yellow, especially in these foresty areas. And I don't know if you can see on the screen there, but there is a big difference between 50 and 52. If you have a look at the grass or even the trees, it warms everything up just that little bit. If you go further and further, things get yellower and yellower. Other direction will make things a bit more blue. We're cooling the image down. Okay, I like to, with this sort of stuff, keep it a little bit on the yellow side. Also because that's what the light would be doing, coming through these sort of brown and yellow and green leaves, casting that sort of a orangey yellow light coming through. Okay, so happy with that. There is no specific standard of settings that I play with, other than I try to keep my blur between sort of 10 and 25. Aperture. Other than that, yeah, it all depends on the situation, really, on the scenario. I know a lot of people do these in different ways, especially if you're bringing in your editing afterwards into it. Me personally, this is just how I like to do it at the moment. I find you're always sort of changing and learning different things from other people. Okay, so again, we'll just double check. We'll click our focus button there. Now we're going to do our tilt. Okay, so down on the right there you can see the degrees. We're just going to aim roughly for 90 and then give ourselves a bit of a stretch and try and line it up how we want. Okay, so we can drop low to the ground, we can stand up a bit higher to get a higher angle on the car. It does show up interesting on me. I quite like, normally I like to shoot quite low, but in this case, see, we've kind of got the cars in like a puddle of dead leaves. You can see this kind of a circle here, which looks interesting. So it feels a bit more comfortable to lift a bit higher so we can see a bit of the back there, and kind of circle the car. Okay, so we've done a bit of shifting, so we're going to focus again. And I'm also going to crop this afterwards as well, so maybe we'll drop a little bit lower. And positioning as well is up to you. We could definitely go more to the side there, put them in the bottom corner. For me, I just sort of like to put the car, if I'm doing a shot like this, I like to put the car sort of a third of the way up. Now it looks like our horizon's looking a bit crooked, so we can straighten that up a little because we're on a slope. And again, something that we can fix a little bit more in post-production. Now just trying to get a good angle for the car there. Just there. Now I could move the car forward a little bit. Nothing stopping me doing that. Just so there's a little bit more of those dead leaves in the back there. But I think this will be fine. We don't want to spend too long on this one. Okay, and again, there's no harm in just giving another quick focus. We've got our distance right. We're just working on our angle there. So we'll put this at about a third. So the car's about a third of the way up. The reason I'm turning my head is because when you twist the image, up and down then become sideways, so it's easiest to do it this way. Try and make sure put them in the middle. Okay, now you can take your shots, save them, share them. If you are doing something with them afterwards, what I recommend you do is use the hub. So what we're going to do is we're going to push A, and what that will do is actually process and render all the elements within the photo, and just give you a little bit more quality. So when that's done, we're going to push back and make sure we don't touch anything. As soon as we touch something, it has to re-render it. So at the moment it's rendered. We're going to go back. I'm going to hit the menu button so that the HUD disappears. And then on the computer, I'm not sure how it works on the Xbox. On the computer, I'm pushing Alt Windows print screen. Okay, and then that's saved it through the game bar. If we were to do it normally and go through the standard Forza hub style, you end up with a JPEG image that's very small and very compressed. The information in it is not very high. Doing it this way, you end up with a PNG, which is a much larger file type, and you've got a lot more to play with, basically. So we can exit out of that. And from that one shot or one position, you could take a bunch of shots. For me, I really do take my time, as you can see. That still's not a shot. You know, I feel I could do that shot better, or different ways. That's the thing. There's so many. There's probably on the drive to here, there were probably a bunch of places where you might have thought, oh, why aren't you shooting there? Why aren't you shooting there? And it's because we all see things differently. We all like different things. I was looking for a specific scenario, which was sort of this kind of, I like the idea of perspective in here with lots of trees off in the background and the broken light. And you'll notice as well, the light hasn't moved. So that's because we've got our time set to fixed, which is very, very handy. And we haven't been brought back on track, which is great. So what we can do now, that's done. I can push the Xbox button, and you see I've been playing here with what we call HDR images, where you take darker shots, mid shots, and bright shots, and that allows you to take different parts of those three different shots and bring them together. If you want to get detail out of the sky, if it's a really, really bright sky, and still detail out of the foreground if it's really, really dark. Okay, so we're in Lightroom now. I'm just going to, this is some shots I've been playing with the old Supra, Fast and Furious. I'm just going to go to the folder that the games bar has saved them to. Okay, and I just drag that shot into Lightroom here. Import. Okay. So I'm using Lightroom Classic. Just while you're in library, if you took a portrait shot, you can just rotate it here. Okay, so I think straight away looking at that, I can see maybe I've given it a little bit too much blur, just because of how the background's working. But I do like personally, I do like that this is in shadow here and it's not sticking out too much. But like I said, we will bring out a little bit more. Yeah, you can see the blurs giving it a little bit of a feeling like it's small. But these are things, you know, you sort of, each scenario is different. This maybe, I think I had the aperture at 25, maybe I would have been better at say 20. But it's a very, very fine line, and I still like the shot, how it ends up. I'm going to crop this. It shoots obviously at widescreen, so it's at a 16:9 ratio. If you're wanting to share your photos on Instagram and things like that, go for square or for the 4:5, 8:10 sort of ratio. You can see up in the left corner here how it's going to crop it. We can just sort of shift it around to something we like. We can put it in the middle there or keep it down the bottom. I might keep it down the bottom and just rotate it slightly. A little bit low. Now, they're not huge files that come out, so you kind of want to try and get it as you kind of want to frame it up as accurately as you can, but we've still got plenty of detail here. Now, what I like to do first is I'll come down and play with our texture and clarity, because this does affect our contrast as well where it happens. The texture, I like to put in a little bit more texture, but you'll see that if I go drastic, so this plays with the highlights and the shadows quite a bit, and then clarity gives you kind of this really aggressive kind of 300 effect. Okay, so it's a similar thing, but much more aggressive. And again, this is different for each image, but I usually put texture up first and then bring in a bit of the clarity to balance it out. And then start playing with my highlights, shadows, whites and blacks, just to decrease a bit of that contrast. It's a bit too punchy for me at the moment, but also to bring in a bit more light in the shaded areas. So what shadows will do is just slide shadows up a little bit, and we get a bit of brightness coming into these darker areas. Likewise, we can go in the opposite direction. This gives a nice effect too. This is kind of this is actually looking more like a shot you might get out of an instant camera, where it's hasn't quite exposed the shot right, and has sort of looked at this and gone, this is the right brightness, I've got it looking good, and as a result the shadows have suffered. But we're just going to bring in a little bit more info there. Highlights for this one, because we're up very bright at the back, I'm going to bring these way down. I'm also looking at the reflections on the bonnet of the car, making sure they're still punchy. This is a bit too flat, but we obviously don't want them burning out like that. Okay, and then the blacks, which is our darkest parts of the shot. Okay, and just really, you kind of do this by eye. One thing you can do is to keep looking at the graph up here. This is called a histogram. The left side being 100% black, and the right side being 100% white. If you've got a lot of blacks in your and dark areas in your shot, you want to either have them right at the line or just before. I prefer not to take them all the way to the side like that. I kind of want the graph just to the, because we've only got a few dark bits, we just want to be touching black there. We've got our nice bright bits and pieces. This will be the brightest area we've got in the shot. Might bring the contrast down a little. We can play with color, bringing a little color back in, or reduce a bit of color. All depends on what you're thinking about, what you want to get out of it. But for the time being, when you're just doing these sort of for yourself, just do them how you want. The main thing to focus on, to think about, is that how much blur you're using, and taking the time to position the car. You know, now that we've got a lighting situation, we could have gone over to there and had a look, parked it up. But for me, I know that wouldn't have worked. But it would have been too solid a light. I like this. To me, all these little textures made by the light make a more real image. And we could maybe warm it up a little bit, just a touch. We can also come down and give us a little bit of sharpness. You can put a vignette on if you want. Vignette's just like a shadow that goes around the side, and that helps us. It helps the viewer focus in on a specific area. So obviously you don't want to do it that much. You don't want to do it that way either. But just that slight change, it'll be something that you don't notice when you look at the photo, but it definitely is there. Okay, so we've gone from this, which when we took it didn't look all that flat, but now compared to this one, it is very flat. And I think There's plenty more we could do, but I think in the basic side of things, that's about all you need to do. We've maybe gone a little bit much with the texture and clarity. We could bring this down a little. You will find with things like this, with the leaves, if you shoot from a lower angle, you get a much better, more realistic feeling. It was just in this scenario, it didn't look as nice with the background if we went a bit too low. You also want to watch the physical items like sticks and leaves that are and branches and grass, big grass patches that are in between you and the vehicle, because I mean, they've done a really good job, but when they're in the way of the car, you really notice how not realistic they are. So it's better off to have them sort of floating around in the background than to have, say, that branch. If that branch was here, it would be really obvious to us that it doesn't belong. So keep that in mind as well. That's a matter of shifting your car forwards or backwards and moving yourself forwards or backwards and zooming in and out. A lot of playing. Oops. But at the end of that, that's quite you know, I'm quite happy with that. We still get a nice sort of realistic kind of feel. And it's just a lot more interesting than a lot of the standard shots that people take. Even a lot of the ones that Forza posts, they're very sort of flat, light, nothing really punches or stands out. And you don't have to go this contrasty as well. You know, we can reduce these a little bit to make it a little bit flatter, more like something that we could imagine seeing. Okay, so we can just give that a quick export. Let's have a look at what we got. Where are we? So there's our shot there. So this stuff in the back, this is what I would probably go in and fix on Photoshop, but yeah, it's just a little, you know, a bit more interesting than the standard shots you see. A couple of other shots that I've taken recently. We've got a Mini Coupe here, just something a little bit different, bit of a character shot there. And I found that the little raindrops, I was waiting a while for the rain to go away and got a bit impatient. It took me a long time to get this car in the right position and clear the posts and the debris out of the way. But I feel like it was definitely worth it. It's got a lot of life to it. This one is sort of a flatter shot, but it's a very, you know, a couple of my friends have said it's very Mr. Bean, but it's because the lighting's not perfect on it, and we've got a bit of a, you know, a little bit of dull spots. It really does feel like it's a snapshot from a holiday on the beach kind of thing. The grass, in-game grass, lets it down a little bit here, but that's something that we could, if we wanted to, sort of replicate a few bits of that or take them out. But I think it's, but it definitely comes out great. One more of the Mini there. And this was a lot of time playing and practicing with focus, like what was working. And because we had this bright lights here, I was lucky not to get too much sort of anomalies, not too much patterning in the render of the leaves. So that came out well. A couple of the Supra that you saw before up close. So this is a similar shot to what we were doing, but different location and the lights are different. This one was shot without freezing the time of day. So this was more, I paused it and I had no choice but to keep going, because when I came out of the photo menu, that it turned to night, which can be one of the challenges. Well, almost night. You can see here that the sun had really dropped. And I forgot to reset the car, so it's covered in dirt, which is a shame. And another one in the streets there. That's the more recent ones I've had to play with. But yeah, definitely have a go. Consider your light. You know, you could drive around, find some spots and figure out what kind of time of day works best for that place. Or you could just find a place you like and try it. You know, make a bunch of races to play with different times of the day. But yeah, so hopefully that was useful. Definitely give it a crack. You don't have to do it in the same spot that I did, but perhaps sort of going along with that one might make it a little bit easier for you. But it's all just about, you know, having a bit of a play with those settings. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about how the photography side works, real world next to in-game, I'd be happy to sort of do a little bit of a video about that. So leave a comment down below if you're interested in me doing a video like that. Otherwise, the next one we'll do a beach shot, maybe with a sunrise or a sunset. See how we go with that. There's quite a few different things we can do there in terms of scenery. We're sticking with the basic game as well. Basic game, basic cars. For me as well, I think starting with basic cars gives you more of a chance to actually play with the how you're shooting it and how real or not real it's looking. It can be really, really hard just to find those fine-tuning tweaks to get them to pop that little bit more, but it's definitely worth the time. Yeah, definitely worth the time. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be notified of the next video that comes up. And if you've got any questions or suggestions for a car for me to shoot, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.